something happening here. What it is,
What's up, everyone? It's Friday, and we are live. Another episode of Sit Down with Sam coming at you on this fine, rainy afternoon. Got my phone ringing in the background. I think I'll probably have to turn that down. Yes, landlines still exist, apparently. Thank you for joining us today. Great episode here, kicking off the little Buffalo Springfield there. I thought that would be appropriate just because that song is, besides being a great song, is often associated actually with more protests. But little fun fact, it's actually based off some rioting that had taken place in LA. So there's your music trivia for the day. Today, however, our guest, very excited. We are going to be joined by GR's own Mr. Jason Scott. He is a 20-year Army veteran, combat veteran, retired. He is chairman's producer here at Guaranteed Rate, so just a kick-ass producer when it comes to loan origination, and overall, just a really good dude. And he's going to talk to us today about VA financing, something that we feel very passionately about. We share that passion, and we're very excited to talk to people and help promote and provide some education on the subject. So watch me stare blankly at my screen as I try to get Mr. Scott here to join us. Let's see. We'll see, it'll freeze up. I'll look like this, maybe like this, or like that. Or I should leave the music playing during these parts so you don't have to just listen to me try to get this to work. It worked. How you doing?
What's going on, Bo?
Hey there.
Well, I'm up here in Duluth, Minnesota, supporting some other VPs at a National Guard conference, getting ready to do the VA Home Loan Seminar for them. And I was dumb enough to leave 74-degree Colorado and come up here without a coat. So.
Just for those people that are watching that don't know, it's like not only will you catch Jason there in areas like this where he's supporting other people doing some amazing things, but other times you'll catch him in my original home state, good old Colorado, maybe Hawaii. All these amazing places around the world that are just going to make everyone be very envious of you right now. And I appreciate you taking time to join us today. I know you've got a lot on your schedule today, and good luck with the event.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
It was, it's funny going through we think of all the movies we've seen and the things, and a lot of people probably recognize that opening song from, I think it's, is it Good Morning Vietnam? I think it was Good Morning Vietnam. There was actually a couple different movies where it's very, popular song. And for me, I was just kind of like, wait, can I play this song? I mean, we're talking about VA financing and supporting veterans. I'm like, is this actually like viewed as like anti? But I don't think that's the case though. What would you say?
I think you're good.
I think I'm good. I mean, it's a great song. It's a great song, and
yeah, right.
And I think that there's obviously a lot of good things about it. I found some neat trivia about it. It's actually about a riot in LA. I did not know that. Yeah, I did not know that. But speaking of,
probably the Watts riot. Is what I was talking about.
Yeah, that's actually a very good guess. I think you might be correct. I'd have to look deeper, but I think you might be right.
Well, it wasn't the Rodney King riot.
It was older than that. Yeah, older than that.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you joining us today. Speaking of interesting things, super interesting fun fact about you. So you have 8 grandchildren, or is it, 8 grandchildren under the age of 8. Is that true?
That is correct. Yeah. And when I tell that to people, I just celebrated my 49th birthday a couple days ago.
Happy birthday.
And thank you. It's one of my friends was saying, he's like, we ought to just do it, celebrate it the way the South Africans do, which is you celebrate your mother for giving you birth. And when he told me that, I called my mom. I said, hey mom, thanks for not getting rid of me, but yeah, but no, 8 grandchildren under the age of 8. Our youngest one will be turning 1 here in a couple months. I tell people that, they're like, oh, you've been busy. I'm like, whoa. I wasn't in the creation of the grandchildren. I'm just the grandfather, right? Like that.
Right. You get to give them back, right?
Yes, exactly.
You've done your part already. Now you get to just have the fun. All the spoils of that. Well, I mean, you look great. I mean, I don't think anyone would believe you if you're probably going to think you're a liar now. Not only are you hanging out in Hawaii and Colorado and these great places, but now you're trying to tell people you're 49. We're losing credibility here, buddy. No one's going to believe you. Well, I thought today would be a really good topic to talk about. In our industry, being in the real estate industry, in the housing industry, you know, my absolute favorite loan product is the VA lending product. And I've said this countless times, and I mean it. And it's a situation where it actually gets somewhat of a bad rap in when it comes to the housing market, in the fact that where there are some agents out there who, when they see an offer come through and it may be written up from that perspective, they might have kind of a negative stigma about it, if you will, like, oh, I don't know, I think I'd rather take a conventional loan. And for those of us who are familiar with the product, I mean, we know that it's actually quite the opposite. It's actually an amazing product that they should be embracing. Why don't you talk a little bit about just the VA product in general, what it is that you love about it? And I mean, obviously you have your ties to, your personal ties, but why don't you talk just a little bit about that?
Well, it goes back to how, when you think about being an active duty service member, or even serving, whether it's National Guard, Reserve, you name it, right? You serve your country. The things that we take for granted today, being in the civilian sector, that you give up, you sacrifice. I mean, freedom of speech, yes, you can say whatever you want in the military, but you may not like the repercussions of it afterwards, right? The ability to dictate your own time. Your time is dictated for you, right? So things like that. Of course, combat deployment, stuff of that nature, deploying, being away from family members, constantly moving, right? I did 20 years in PCS. I don't know how many times, but it was a lot. The toll that takes on the family, right? So that's why whenever I speak with other veterans, I always say, hey, thank you for your service. And then I also look at the spouses and say, and your sacrifice to this great country, because they sacrifice a lot. I think about my own wife, having to move multiple times, change careers multiple times just to support me, right? When I meet realtors that have a negative, let's say, perception, because that's what I'm going to call it, is a perception, I like meeting those realtors because it gives me an opportunity to truly educate them, because that's really what it boils down to, is just educating folks, right? You and I have talked about this. Hawaii, 12 years ago, was a market that was very anti-VA loans. And it's just because people didn't know about it. So we had to, and that takes time. You have to educate, right? So I always ask them, I was like, well, what is it that you don't like about the VA loan, right? And of course, they'll be like, well, my seller has to pay points or whatever. And when they make statements like that, I'm like, oh, okay, so you haven't really done a VA loan in probably over 10 years. So, and that's what I'm thinking, right? So then I say, well, can you give me a couple minutes to teach you about the new VA loan, right? And when I say the new VA loan, they're like, new VA loan, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, can you agree that the VA probably doesn't do a very good job of informing our veterans of all their most benefits and up-to-date benefits and entitlements? So they're probably not doing a really good job of informing you of how the loan has changed. They're like, yeah. And I was like, all right, let me tell you how some of the things. First off, the seller doesn't have to pay points. Well, what about appraisals, Jay? Well, what about them? Believe it or not, the appraisals on the VA loan are probably one of the most strongest appraisals in the actual industry as a whole, right? Because they're worrying about safety and habitability. Well, Jay, what about flecked paint? Well, what about flecked paint? Was the home built in 1978? If it was, built and painted with lead-based paint, then that's going to be an issue no matter where you're at, right? But I mean, so, and then I tried to tell them, I was like, the bottom line is you're working with someone that actually knows it inside and out, up to down, front to back, top to bottom, right? And that's the difference. Like yourself, right? We're consummate professionals and wanting to know everything about what it is that we do and we provide to our veterans, and it all starts with education. So part of the reason why, one of the main reasons I love the VA loan is because it gives my veterans an opportunity to build wealth and literally follow the same story that I've done. You know this, I do the VA home loan seminars for our national partnership with the USO on a global scale, right? And when I do that seminar, just like the one I'm getting ready to do here in Duluth, I say, okay, for the first half of the seminar, this is going to be a very high level view of how the VA loan works. But then I'm going to share my personal story of how I've used it to build wealth over the last 16 years. And I show them this all started with the first home and how we leveraged that. Then we bought the second home, how we leveraged that, right? And I explained to them about the 50, the 500, and the 1,000 meter target, meaning what is your near, midterm, and long-term goals, right? To put it in civilian speak. And so that's why I love it, is because it gives our veterans, I always say in the military, our leadership does a great job of making sure that we're all physically fit, but we do a horrible job of making sure that we're fiscally fit. So this is my way of teaching my fellow veterans and saying, look, if this knuckle dragging, crayon eating, door kicking E7 can become a millionaire and build wealth, and create long-term generational wealth, you can do it too, right? So that's the main reason, right? Is to give those that sacrifice so much an opportunity to improve their status and leave long-term generational wealth, right?
Sure.
And we all know, Warren Buffett still lives in the same $38,000 home that he bought, however many years ago, right? Like, I mean, when you look at giants and they talk about, the true way to build wealth is through real estate, I firmly believe that is the one consistent that, will never go away. So
oldest industry, right? Banking and home ownership, actually going way back.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I find that a lot of times in our industry when we run into, clients who are making offers and if the seller's hesitant or the agent who's representing the seller is hesitant about VA, I think it's like anything. A lot of people fear what they don't understand, right? They're in a position where they push back a little bit because they're not familiar with that. And as you've said, it just takes a moment of education to try and show them, like, listen, there are a lot of more similarities between conventional and VA when it comes to the appraiser, because that's usually a lot of times where people push back, the appraisal is going to be a nightmare. And they're not wrong in the fact that there was a time where it was more difficult.
You're right.
I've only been doing this 21 years. I'm not super old, but I remember a time when it was a little bit more difficult, but things have changed. And they've changed for the better. And it's gotten to the point now where there's not really going to be many differences between the appraisal process for a conventional or a VA loan. And often we'll have properties that are in complete disrepair and be like, oh, this will never pass VA. And I'm like, well, that's not passing conventional.
That's not passing anything, right? Like, I mean, and here's the thing, the VA loan appraisal tends to come back quicker than our conventional appraisals, right? I mean, each state, you'll know county by county, what's the standard turn time. And most of, the states that you and I operate in, the VA loan comes back within 10 business days. So we're consistently closing VA loans in 23 to 30 days, no matter where it's at, right? Where that's sometimes a difficult challenge with a conventional product, depending on where you're at, right? So, I mean, and it's all about speed too. I mean, and being fully qualified, the steps that we do, both you and I as professionals with GR, we make sure our veterans and our buyers in general, they're not out there just shopping on a whim. They know exactly what they're approved for, and what they can afford. So that way we literally, we go light speed, right? And that's why I think that's one of the reasons why we consistently win. I would like to say it's our charisma and charm as well, but I'm pretty sure it's because, we save them a lot of money, go fast.
We'll say it's all the above. Okay. It's a nice combination, but and for those of you watching, the reality is VA has lower interest rates. It's basically the lowest interest rate you're going to find. The ability to proceed with no down payment, to utilize no mortgage insurance for that. So you're leveraging your cash as much as possible, which goes hand in hand with building wealth, as you had said. This is a milestone. You're not putting anything in. For those who have served for us, they've earned this benefit, and it's their right to use this benefit, and it should be something that is of value. And I think that when approaching this from a sales perspective, meaning selling a property, I think people should embrace that. And what I like to try and let people know is that, the things are updated when it comes to the appraisal process. You're not going to know the difference. And on the flip side of things, a lot of people don't realize that VA guidelines are actually much more flexible. They're some of the most flexible in the industry. They allow for, to try and support the veteran through a lot of different circumstances that other loan types, conventional being in one of them, wouldn't allow for. And
well, let's just talk about that, like DTI, right? For those watching, income. That's not really the driving factor for a VA loan. Really, what's most important about the VA loan is the residual, right? What that veteran has left over per their family size each month after they pay everything, to include their future mortgage payment. That's not even something that's factored into a conventional loan, right? You have hard stops. 50% DTI is pretty much it, right? On just about every conventional product out there, right? Where with VA, the VA really doesn't care about the DTI. Again, I try to explain this. I think about it if I was explaining it to myself 10 years ago. The VA wants to make sure that after you buy your home, you're eating more than just beans and rice. Beans and rice is great.
Unless that's what you're into, amazing, of course.
Right? But you're not going to survive on that, right? And so that's why I think it's one of the most strongest products out there. Now, when some realtors or people say, well, I just don't think they have enough skin in the game, the 100% financing is just, that's not fair. And I was like, well, I would normally have a very passionate response about that, but they have the ultimate skin in the game, right? They are literally giving, like we talked about earlier, they're giving up a lot of the freedoms that you and I, now for the current status I'm in, take for granted. Typically on a grant, like when people talk about things that are going wrong or stuff of that nature, they always, our leadership, they're always like, Jay, why do you have such a different outlook? And I'll be like, well, I have kind of a different perspective. Being deployed to both Afghanistan and Iraq multiple times, I come from a perspective of, I get to take a shower every day. I get to kiss my wife, and I get ice cubes. You have no idea what it's like to go a whole year in the desert without ice cubes and cold water, right?
I don't want to know
So,
that. Yeah, absolutely not.
So that's what I talk about when someone says they don't have any skin in the game. I'm like, they have all the skin in the game in the world. They're asked to do things that most people wouldn't even comprehend or even think about, right? And I firmly believe that every veteran should have the opportunity to own a piece of what they've helped defend.
Agreed.
Right? And I will continue to champion that cause as long as I'm breathing, right? And as long as I'm in this industry, which that's going to be forever as far as I'm concerned.
Plus,
because
think about it from if someone has no money down and there's an appraisal issue, right? It's an easier correction to make, right? Because there's no money down.
Absolutely.
I have clients who are putting money down, because they want to reduce the funding fee. So they'll put a down payment, they'll put 5-10% down. And then if, say in that position, the property under appraises by 5%, well, they can still finance that property without realizing an increase in their interest rate or mortgage insurance. So it actually has more flexibility, which is tremendous.
And that's the difference, right? I mean, when a realtor is working with a lender that says they can do mortgages, but they're not truly what I would say considered an expert or a master at their craft, it's kind of like going to the podiatrist if you got a brain tumor. The podiatrist is technically a doctor, but probably not going to give you the most accurate advice when it comes to anything in regards to what's up here, right? You can go to any typical mortgage lender and they can be like, yeah, I do VA loans, or I can do a VA loan. And I'm not trying to say that we're brain surgeons. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying that we are highly skilled at what we do for a reason. And that's, again, part of the reason why we're both, consistently year over year helping many, many folks and doing what we do and doing what we love, right?
So I'm glad you said podiatrist, because there's definitely a joke in there somewhere if you were to say that people had a problem with their head and they went to a proctologist. But that's a whole different show. But there's some other great benefits that a lot of people don't realize. For disabled veterans, there is a funding fee that goes into VA that they can be exempt from this funding fee. In the state of Illinois, and I think there's other states that support this as well, but in the state of Illinois, there also can be exempt from property taxes. If you're disabled, you're exempt from
property tax.
Right?
Yes. And we both know Illinois property taxes are pretty intense.
Second highest in the country.
Right? So let's talk about that, being funding fee exempt, right? One of two ways that you could be considered funding fee exempt. One, obviously you exit military service, you get rated by the VA, and you've been, validated to have some type of disability tied to your military service, and therefore are considered funding fee exempt. The other one is ever since the Navy Blue Water Act was signed, this was in June of 2019 by previous President Donald Trump, and then went into effect 1 January 2020. For those of us that were, combat deployed, that had received a Purple Heart while on service. Now, you could have received a Purple Heart and you can still be serving, and guess what? You're funding fee exempt, right? That's crazy. So, and to put that in perspective, I tell people, first time buyer using the VA, that's 2.3% if they go 100% financing. So that's $2,300 for every 100K added into the loan. And that's the only closing cost that can be rolled into the loan, right? But when you're funding fee exempt, you're literally only financing truly 100% the actual value, where when you're not funding fee exempt, you're actually, financing 102.3 or 103.6, depending if it's continuous use or if you haven't put any money down. Now, years past, some people would be like, "Ooh, that seems like a lot." But again, we're looking at historic appreciation rates over the last years, and that's not going to stop anytime soon. So really, that becomes a moot point. And the whole point of that is you're paying that funding fee to give you the ability to actually do 100% financing, which, in my my neighborhood that, we just sold the home in Hawaii, but I used to have neighbors all the time. They'd go, and keep in mind, this was a very modest neighborhood, nothing crazy. They'd be like, Jason, are you rich? And I'd be like, why do you ask me that question? And they're like, well, it's just you and your wife in the house. And just about every neighbor, it's multi-families, right? Or multi-generational families. I'd be like, no, I use my VA home loan benefit to buy my home. And they're like, dang, I wish I could do that. And I was like, well, the recruiting office is literally right down in Pearl River. Go raise your right hand.
You're like, be careful what you wish for.
So, yeah.
There was a quote yesterday that got sent out. Guaranteed Rate does a really good job of creating a positive culture, and just, in general, with such a great company. And they send out the daily positive quote, guaranteed positivity that they send out. And yesterday's was great. And it basically says the difference between who you are and who you want to be is what you do. And I love that. And, so for those out there who are thinking like, wow, I wish I could take advantage of that, you can. You just need to go sign up. That's I do like to keep some of this a little bit fun. Now I need a story, because we always like to ask a little bit of tidbits from our guests. Now, you've been married for 13 years, and
yes, we just had our anniversary literally the day before my birthday.
Congratulations! Yeah, you got a month. April's a month of celebrations for y'all. I'm right there with you. Got my birthday this Sunday, actually. So a lot of good things happening in April.
Oh, there you go. Happy birthday.
It's my understanding that you've been married for 13 years to the lady that saved your life. There's a story there. I need it. We need to hear it.
All right. So it's not as happy as you think. So I apologize for that.
Okay.
So I tell people, so the guy you see now, and a lot of people seem to think that I'm just this larger than life character, that I'm like this all the time. What people don't understand is I truly am an introvert by nature. This is my adaptive.
I was gonna say, that's very
strange.
strange.
What we do, right? Yeah. So, but a little over 8 years ago, I always say I was in a very dark space, dealing, with the effects of deployment, right? Multiple deployments, and I didn't like myself. My kids didn't like myself. My wife didn't like me, and I could have easily been a statistic that year, but my wife just pulled me to the side one day, and she's like, baby, as long as you keep trying, I'll never leave your side. And it floored me, because I'll be honest, this is my third marriage. It's the longest I've ever been married. I'd never had that kind of support. You and I, we've talked, we both come from very similar beginnings in life, right? So never really had that faith from someone that believed in me that much, right? And so it, excuse me, it opened up my eyes to where I was like, I need some help, right? And I basically tell people I self-check myself into the crazy house. That's what we called it, right? I seeked help. I didn't have to do the 6-month program, but I did 9-month program, but I did do the six month inpatient or outpatient or outpatient program is what it was called. And I tell people it was like trying to play mental chess with a doctor every day, knowing that you're going to get your ass kicked, because that's literally what it was. And because of that moment with my wife, and the fact that she continued to support me, and to this day, she even says, baby, just keep trying, just keep doing. So every day is a new day. I like myself a lot better now. My kids love me. My wife loves me. We're just in a better space. And I truly attribute that. And I always say that my wife is my rock, and I'm very, very fortunate. And I know that not all my brothers and sisters that have served have that same type of support. So that's why, like last year, GR, we raised what, 2.8 million or 1.8 million, whatever it was, some crazy amount for Wounded Warrior, right? With gracious matching. I think it was like 3-1 or 4-1.
It was
crazy. And of course, on the chairman circle, we just get going back like, hey, all right, cool, I'm in for this, I'm in for that, and then boom, hey, I'm in for this, right? So yeah, I live it, eat it, breathe it. I love where we work. Like you said, the culture that we have, the GR Foundation, what we're doing for veterans. We have an ERG group called VetNet now, which is pretty awesome. It's just, everything that we're doing it the right way. And I couldn't be prouder to be part of this organization. And, to have cool friends like you, man, that we get to hang out, a couple times.
Your credibility's waning again there on that one. We no, we like you, and we're glad, and we thank her for that. And you know what? And we thank you for your service as well. You know, you spent a long time defending this country, and thank you so much for everything you've done. We love having you here at Guaranteed Rate. It's so amazing, and you're such a great person, and very well accomplished. You know, you're going through I think it's three years in a row of our chairman's circle, which is an incredible accomplishment. You know, a lot of people don't realize that. I mean, what it takes to make it into our chairman's circle is what most companies do. So it's amazing what
Right.
you've done. And I want to thank you for coming out here today and joining us. For those of you who are not familiar, please make sure you're following us both and take a look for more information. Yeah, I mean, good luck at today's event. Next week, market update, although not necessarily going to be here. So good luck seeing me next Friday. But otherwise, look for me the following week. Stay warm. Well, it's probably not too bad up there up north right now, right? It's not too bad up there. Yeah, 40s. Well, stay warm. Put your jacket on. Speak well, loudly and clearly, and have fun. And we'll be seeing you very soon. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Brother. Thank you, man. You guys take care.
Take care.
Aloha.
Little.